All right, everybody. This Halloween, we're hosting a virtual live show with our good friends over at Cult Podcast. We're doing a double feature, and it's part of Panic Fest online Tricks and Treats event. Because of the pandemic, a lot of us aren't able to properly celebrate our favorite time of year. However, now we have an opportunity to have some spooky fun and help us out with some friendly folks in Kansas City. This is more, we're doing a team up as Horror Virgin and Cult Podcast, not Romancing the Pod, but it's still going to be fun.
Yeah, so 25% of each purchase goes to help keep the Screenland Armor, one of our favorite theaters in America, in business. Additionally, we'll be releasing some limited edition merch, and from now until Thursday, October 8th, you can pre-order your own piece of Horror Virgin and Cult Podcast history.
Tickets are on sale now for $20, and our shirts are available for $25. However, we're offering a bundle for $40 where you get both. It's going to be so much fun, and we can't wait to see you all there. More information is available at cultpodcastshow.com. Remember that these shirts are super limited edition and are only available for pre-order until October 8th. See you all soon.
Ookie spooky.
Ookie spooky.
I don't need no wine and dine. I want something high class. Like spending my nights at home, romancing the podcast. Take a deeper dive into these movies that are trash. Me once in a bookstore, and then we'll smash. Roll call. Todd. Paige. The other guy. Oh yeah, Mikey.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm Todd, and this week we watched Wimbledon. Yeah, so have you guys seen this movie before?
Okay, I picked this movie because I love this movie. And I'll tell you why I love this movie.
Tell me, Mikey.
One, it's kind of boring that in fact it's just like kind of two people who fall in love, and like that's kind of what happens. And tennis, which I don't really like the tennis part. But I like this movie. It's an interesting romantic comedy because it's mostly from the male perspective.
Yes, it is.
Which I find there's not a lot of movies like that.
That's probably true, actually. I mean, it's all Paul Bettany internal monologue. We don't get anyone else's internal monologue.
Yeah, and I just think it's really sweet, and I have a crush on Kristen Dunst, and I think Paul Bettany rocks it in this movie. And we can get into this with the scenes, but like I really related to the character. I think not in the tennis way.
Not in the like super in shape way. Is that what you're saying, Mikey?
I mean, yes. Not where I played tennis every day. But I mean, I also like there's in-universe explanations for them being rich and good-looking is that they are pro athletes.
Yes.
So, boom. There you go.
Nailed it. Paige, had you seen this movie before?
I had not. I watched it for the first time yesterday.
It was my first time too, so what did you think about it?
It's okay. I feel like if you asked 3 different people who worked on this movie what this movie is about, you'd get 3 different answers.
Oh, interesting.
Because I feel like, now I will, to Mikey's credit, they are not emotionally flawed individuals. They are seemingly regular people.
I agree.
Who fall in love in what seems to be a fairly real way. But then I feel like the movie completely forgets about that for the last half an hour plus of the movie where we just have to watch a tennis match in real time. And like,
I love that.
I have played tennis just at like the park, not any sort of, I cannot wrap my brain around how tennis is scored at all. Never have been able to.
It's honestly really easy, but...
See, you say that, but it made it so difficult for me to understand the stakes of that game because it's happening and people are like, oh, and I'm like, is that bad? Is it good? I don't know.
Context clues. If they go, ooh, then yeah, it's bad. If they go, yay, it's good.
But then it was like good and then bad and then good and then bad and then good again. And then I was like, I think he won. And... But my frustration is we just spent the first hour of this movie watching a very, very touching romantic comedy that is a very down-to-earth romantic comedy, and then the movie's just like, that's not what this is about. This is definitely about his tennis career. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then I think here's the problem. Because neither of them are crazy, they don't have anything to do. in this movie. It like hurt me to realize that, where I was like, maybe this is why people are always crazy in rom-coms, because when they're not crazy, there's nothing to watch. They're just happy, and that doesn't make for a good movie, apparently. So I don't hate this movie, but I don't love this movie. I would probably never watch it again, but it was fun.
I love the first hour of this movie as well. And I think that's why I love this movie. And I think it's so hard to find romantic movies like this that I have to forgive the last 20 minutes because I enjoy having a movie where I don't hate the people the first hour. And I would change the ending to keep with the theme. Like if he loses at the end, I think it would be way better.
I think he should lose and that they shouldn't end up together. And then that would match the metaphor that they establish in the first hour of the film.
No, I don't think they shouldn't end up together. That's too far.
You hurt Mikey's feelings. He was like, no.
Film school hat for a second.
Yeah, we're getting high-roaded, Mikey.
Yep.
They establish in this film multiple scenes at which the characters, while falling in love, are viewing a comet in the sky, a thing that is only going to appear for a brief period of time and then it's gone.
Yep.
And it's this wonderful thing to behold for a moment, but it is not a lasting phenomena. And when they have their fight, the comet disappears. And I would argue that this movie seeks to compare them to that comet, a thing that is wonderful and fascinating and once in a lifetime, but it doesn't last. And the fact that they end up together makes those comet scenes meaningless within the context of this film, and it shouldn't even be in.
Okay, counterpoint. I feel like that was part of the metaphor of both of them thinking that the comet was like their professional careers plus personal lives, of like, it's all, I worked hard to be in tennis and all my professional life is like a comet. It's like, it just flies by, it burns hot and heavy, it burns out. It's just coincidence that it's happening. And then when they actually fall in love and they actually have a real fight, they start making the choice to be together. And it's not, and then that's when he stops believing in luck at that point.
I do think that's when he stops believing in luck.
And he realizes you have to make a choice and work at actual relationships. And that's why I think they should end up together, because they both kind of get rid of that of like, oh, you can't be here, that throws off my game, or you can't, I need to do this because it does help my game. And then like they were treating the relationships like that too, because they both had their different rituals for their relationships too. And so it shows through his tennis and his relationships that he kind of let go of that life to like grow. And I think she did too.
I think if that's what they were going for, they did not do it well.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. I was like, if that's the point they were trying to make, not well done, because it definitely telegraphs an idea of a flash in the pan and then ruins it.
But then the movie just really concentrates on the tennis match, so it loses all semblance of finishing off what it's trying to do. But I still love it.
No lie, half an hour of tennis, just tennis, nothing else. And if you don't know the rules of tennis, you're like, I'm confused. His back hurts. I can't imagine playing tennis with a back injury. It sounds terrible.
And a regular tennis match, a regular men's Wimbledon tennis match can go 4 or 5 hours easy. So, like, you're on the court for 4 or 5 hours and you're allowed one bathroom break, apparently. I didn't realize that. But this is the first time I had seen this movie, and I loved this movie. I thought it was great. I was crying at multiple scenes. I just thought it was great. I grew up playing tennis because I had a babysitter who got me hooked on tennis and Days of Our Lives, and my summers were never better. So, like, I could follow the scoring and stuff like that, the double faults and all of that shit. Like, I was on board for it. So, I could see how that would be annoying for the 30 minutes of tennis, especially that last tennis match. If you don't really quite know what's going on, you're like, can we just get back to the stuff I understand?
Yeah.
It didn't bother me because I was like, oh, I know what's happening, you know?
But Paige is right. It's like half the people are like, let's make a sports tennis movie, and half the people are like, let's make a romantic comedy.
I mean, I agree. I just liked it because I like tennis.
But I loved it.
I know, and I liked it too. But let's just get into the movie because we're gonna fucking talk about all this.
This was surprisingly highbrow analysis from us. I'm really proud of you guys.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
honestly,
you.
guys, we've come a long way since, a month ago.
Last week when I laughed about monocles for 10 minutes.
Holy shit, that episode is fire. All right.
So we open with a voiceover from Paul Bettany where he basically says,
We all start off in life with a dream.
and he basically says, for a tennis player, it's basically being at Wimbledon, smashing that final shot. And we see Kirsten Dunst kind of playing this out as he's narrating it.
Yeah.
And then he says, For most tennis players, that's all it ever is, a dream, and reality is another story. And we cut to him playing, and he's just getting his ass handed to him.
He's getting served.
Yeah. This is where we kind of learn through kind of a montage of him finishing that game, walking through the health club where he was playing, that he's at the end of his career and he's quote unquote getting old. But we also learn that he's only 31.
Well, I mean, you sort of age out young in most professional sports,
Yeah.
and he's aging out. Like, tennis is a hard game to play. He's still ranked. Like, he's ranked in the world. I think he's 119 or whatever.
Yeah, he's 119.
Yeah.
And the ranking becomes kind of a recurring joke through this kind of montage that I love.
I loved it too, because he used to be ranked 11, but everyone keeps
Yes!
telling him he was ranked 14 or 19.
Yeah, 15, 17.
I love when he's outside of his car and he just hears those two ladies talking about him as they're
Yes.
walking by, and he's like, oh, that's Peter Colt. He was ranked 19th in the world a while ago. And he goes, I was 11. I love that.
What we see in these scenes is that he's getting an engraved nameplate at the health club where he's basically going to be their tennis director. So he's going to like teach people tennis and essentially retire.
Yeah.
He agrees to take the job. He's clearly not super happy about it though.
Right.
But he does have a badass car.
His whole family is super rich. They don't really talk about where their money comes from, but he has never worked a day in his life outside of tennis.
Right.
One of my favorite moments of this movie is like, it's right in the beginning where he's like, you know, most people who really make it, they have to be, you know, they're usually hungry. And he's pulled up to his house and he's like, as you can see, I've never been hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, he just acknowledges that he comes from this incredibly blessed life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like has so much more advantages to people in his monologue. And I'm like, wow, what a refreshing way to like acknowledge that in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of math to do for this movie because it all makes sense in the real world.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like about it.
Yeah, this is a very down-to-earth movie where there was nothing in this movie that was glaring. Everyone seems to fit where they are. Everything seems to be in line with what would happen in a real situation.
Yeah.
He comes home to his family's house. It seems like his family is nowhere. He hears what sound like sex noises.
Well, they are sex noises, Paige.
They are sex noises. He walks in on his brother like speed biking, like speed cycling
Yeah.
while watching Deep Throat. And it took me like 2 different scenes to realize that his brother was James McAvoy.
Really?
Right?
I knew it right away. I was like, that's James McAvoy, and that dude is awesome. I love James McAvoy. I mean,
The cast of this movie is killer.
It is a killer
yes,
cast.
absolutely.
I did not realize it was James McAvoy until 2 scenes later, where I was like, where does James McAvoy come from? Oh, that was the brother? Oh, okay.
Did you hear him say it wasn't just Deep Throat, it was the director's cut of
Yeah, it was
Deep
the
Throat?
director's cut of
Which
Deep
I don't
Throat.
know if that exists, but I'm going to
don't
have to do a
think it
Google
does.
search after this.
I don't think it does.
And at this part, he's like, also, some people who make it really big, champions, have supported families. And as you can see, I do not have one.
Yeah.
Yeah. His mom and dad are outside fighting in the
Yeah.
garden. And his brother, we're going to find out as the movie goes on that his brother has a bit of a gambling problem and routinely bets against him.
Yeah, and we find out that he's like been on this losing streak for like 3 years or 2 years or something like that. And so like betting, for 5 years. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So but betting on him if he's on this like incredibly bad losing streak is a good bet.
You're so wrong, Todd.
No, I'm just saying it's the right thing to do.
Financially.
Yeah, financially. You can still be supportive and hope your brother wins, but like if you want to make some money, bet on reality, right? I mean, listen, James McAvoy shows up at the final match at the end, but you know he lost $100 on that match.
Oh, easily.
Spoilers, at the end, he does say he bet on his brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was kind of like dodgeball, where it seems like it looks like someone's going to bet against somebody and then they bet for somebody and they end up winning.
Yeah.
So in the scene, Paul Bettany is telling his mom that he's going to retire, and his mom's kind of not having it, which I kind of like. His mom does the thing that my parents do whenever they have to watch one of my comedy shows, and they're like, "You're so much funnier than everyone else," and I'm like, "That's not reality, but thank you."
That's nice because my mom won't even listen to these podcasts that we do.
Oh, my parents listen to every podcast I'm on.
Oh, I love that your parents are supportive.
That means they had to listen to the last one.
My mom skipped the 50 Shades episode.
My mom listened to the 50 Shades episode and then texted me and was like, how dare you analyze that as if it's an actual book? I was like, okay, thanks. So his mom says, I believe you to be a truly great tennis player. And he says back to her, I'm old. And she says, you're only 31. But he then basically says, I'm tired of losing and all of the travel. And he mentions basically long distance relationships that don't go anywhere. So essentially, he's just tired of the lifestyle of being a pro tennis player and has been losing for 5 years.
Yeah, it's like some guy who's been focusing on his professional life and now really wants to like get married and have a kid, and he's like struggling to find someone to settle down with. And I just like thought of like, I wonder if I knew anyone like that that's like really trying to find true love and just like really having a hard time meeting someone that is, you know, on his level.
I think I'm really going to meet somebody this year, though. I think he's in my living room smoking pork ribs right now.
Oh, I think I'm going to meet him this year.
God, just rub it in, Paige. I mean, I think you guys can see why I relate to this movie.
Yeah, when he was saying those things, I was like, oh, I know Mikey thinks he's Paul Bettany.
You know that's my internal. His whole first 15 minutes is like basically internal monologue, like telling the audience his life. It's actually pretty charming because he's pretty funny in his internal monologue.
Paul Bettany's amazing, and I agree. He's very, very charming for an ugly British man.
But I mean,
for me, he vacillates between being incredibly attractive and ugly in this movie, and it's second to second, whether or not I'm going to be into it or not.
I agree 100%.
He's the male Hillary Swank.
See, I think Hillary Swank is attractive most of the time. I don't necessarily see the same flashes. But with Paul Bettany, there are scenes where I'm like, yeah, I get it. And then like just the light will catch him wrong and I'm like, oh, Skeletor. Like it's just.
When he walks in the room with just sweatpants on, you're like, oh, he could get it.
Yes.
But like when he's sweaty at the tennis match, you're like, I'm out.
Yes, that is what it is. Because like when they're like cuddling and hanging out, I'm like, yes, I get it. I'm here for it. But then whenever he's playing tennis in this movie, I'm just like, ugh.
Monster. Okay, all right. So this is why I love this film. So like me personally, I'm very good at my job.
Not to brag.
I've been doing it for 12 years. I do crisis intervention.
And you're like a licensed therapist.
And you're humble, like the most humble. No one's more humble than you.
I hate you guys. But I mean, I'm trying to explain to people. I mean, I've talked people down and like, you know, putting the gun down from their head or like talking people out of the tree. Like, and it's like very purposeful work. And like, you think it's like your life purpose, but also there's so much more that you want in life. And so like, I feel like the same struggle with him, well, if I'm not this guy who like tries to help people who are suicidal, who am I? And I really like that dynamic as he's going through, because he's like, I'm tired of this life, but who am I once I stop? And he like goes through that the whole time.
And I feel like that's what the movie ultimately is about. Like, I think I would enjoy this movie if they didn't end up together at the end of it, or maybe there wasn't even a really heavy romantic thing. I think I would still like this movie. I'm not sure I would like it as much, but I do like a movie about a guy who's coming to grips with him. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but him getting older and like, I need to move on in my life and decide, you know, maybe it's time for me to start dating seriously, and maybe I should like really try to get off these dating apps and just find one person, Mikey, that I would like to maybe spend a long, long time with.
Yep.
Agreed. I do think that is the theme of this movie, and I do think the waters get muddied.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's kind of a problem for me, where I'm like, is it a great romantic comedy, or is it his story of realization of the changes in his life?
Yeah. I feel like if we had a Wimbledon 2, where we came back and he was in the booth with John McEnroe, and he fell in love with Kirsten Dunst in that movie, that would be a better series, because in the first movie, he comes to grips with he needs to move on with a chapter of his life. And then maybe there's a fling in the first one, but they don't end up together. And then he falls in love with a tennis pro who wins Wimbledon. That would be cool.
So you want like a Before Sunrise, but with Wimbledon, like a Before Wimbledon.
There's nothing better than the Before trilogy in my mind, as far as this podcast goes.
I feel like it is a much more impactful story if it is only a fling, because he then sees reflected in her the life that he is leaving behind. And instead, we get a mishmash which makes neither story as impactful as it could be.
I'll agree with all of that. I still loved this movie.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
So we learned during the scene that there's some family unrest. His dad is moving up into the tree house.
Yeah, like a kid from The Lucky One. He's living in a tree house in their backyard.
Yeah, his mom is obsessed with her gardening. His brother's obsessed with porn and gambling. And he doesn't want any of them to come see him at Wimbledon.
Because they're bad luck, Paige. Did you guys notice that his brother was a professional tennis player?
What? No.
Yeah, he only played foursomes.
Boo.
Wow.
No, but I mean, in those scenes when he's like crashing at Pete's flat, there's 2 guys and 2 girls in every scene.
He's got a best friend.
But it's a different person every time.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's not a best friend. It's just he always travels in a crew.
Yeah, they're FetLife hookups that he's attending at the flat. I'm just saying.
So the next scene we cut to is Peter driving up to the Hotel Dorchester. He checks in, and the woman checking him in doesn't even pay enough attention to him to hand him the right key. She just hands him a key, says it's the top floor with a wonderful view, and he's like, I'm confused. That can't be right. He gets up there. It is a gorgeous suite.
Yeah.
But he could hear the shower going, which has this ever happened to you?
I have had something like this happen to me, Paige, because
Me
I
too.
used to travel a lot for my job, and I
Yep.
honestly did until COVID. Like, I was on the road 2 weeks a month, but like, it wasn't quite as lovely as what happened here, though.
Yeah.
Because I
no.
just walked in and someone was in his boxers and like a t-shirt eating pizza alone.
Oh, no.
It was-
What is wrong with that, Todd?
When it happened to me, I opened the door and there was luggage on the bed. So it was somebody else's luggage.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, bye. But he walks in, he hears the shower going, and turns and can fully see Kirsten Dunst in the shower.
Yeah, we jump a lot of steps in this movie. Like, he sees her naked in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
In Paul Bettany's defense, when he initially turns towards her, there's frosted glass except for her head.
Right.
She decides to get out of the shower.
Yes.
And we find this out later. She sort of already had a thing for him, but they had never officially met.
Yes. And we'll talk about that when we get there because that's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Okay, so like basically he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then she gets out of the shower and she's like, wrong room. And I guess we learn that she knows who he is.
Yes. But this is the first time they've officially met, right?
Right. And also she has a habit during tournaments to like find a guy to hook up with.
And she is really aggressive in coming on to Paul.
Yeah.
So he's like, I guess I'll leave. And then he like tries to back out, but goes into the wrong room and it's the kitchen
the
of the
kitchen,
hotel
yeah.
room.
Yes. It's a lovely kitchen.
Yeah, I love how he's like, goodbye. And may I say goodbye? I mean, goodbye. And he's just so charming. I love him so much in this movie.
Then we do see him get to his actual hotel room, which is not at all exciting.
It's like a shoebox compared to her room.
Yeah.
It's a pretty realistic hotel room depiction in a movie.
I completely agree, but she is like top 10 ranked. I'm not sure if what her rank is. I'm not sure if they ever say it, but she is like elite level.
She's got to be 1 or 2 because she's favored to win. And
Yeah.
when she doesn't, it's like an upset.
Yeah, so she's like way, way, way higher on the hierarchy of tennis players than he is, right? So I thought that was a nice juxtaposition.
So we see her in an interview.
Yeah.
And she actively avoids talking about her personal life. And they're basically commenting on her kind of being unsportsmanlike, where she's so competitive that she's not great on the court as far as like attitude goes.
That she does it to get in her opponent's heads. And I wrote at that point in my notes, Kristen has a sort of John McEnroe vibe in her interview, and I am here for it. And they even do like a cutaway of her yelling at the line judge, which is a John McEnroe move. And like 20 minutes later, when John McEnroe is the announcer, I was like, yes, I love this dude.
At one point, John McEnroe just says, I would have lit this place on fire. And I'm like, if you know who John McEnroe is, that's hilarious. Like a handful of times, he's like, if I had a call like that, I would murder somebody. And you're just like, you damn well would.
Paige, I feel like this movie is Shakespeare in Love for tennis people.
It is. I'll agree.
It must be.
And I am just one of those people.
Yeah.
Thanks to my
Of course you are, Todd.
babysitter when I was a kid.
There you go. We cut to they're going into the practice gym, and the guy checking them into the gym says the same thing to every person that comes in. I don't know if you guys noticed. He's like, it's your year. And it's like, it can't be everybody's year.
I didn't notice that. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's really, really funny. They go out to practice. So he's practicing with Jamie Lannister, and then Jamie Lannister decides to leave. And so he's trying to practice his serve.
Can I just say Jamie Lannister's German accent is terrible in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad. But he does play a very charming best friend for
And I love their relationship, and I love Jamie Lannister. I feel like he's an amazing, amazing actor, but he comes off like he's not a great actor because he's doing that really bad German accent.
Yeah.
Well, this is like probably one of his first role.
I think this is one of his first movies. I do like their friendship, though.
Me too. It's great.
It establishes that they're practice partners and they always practice together on the road.
Yeah.
And they're like best buddies.
Yeah.
And what I like about this movie is like they set them up for some conflict, but like they respond how like real adult males would do, like
Yeah.
hopefully healthy people would do, and be like they have like a "you're still my best friend" moment, and it's like it's really nice to see a movie with like a bunch of those moments in of like, oh, this is what like nice people do.
Okay, that steam room scene you're talking about after he beats him, I cried during.
I did not cry, but I did really like that scene. And for that exact reason, because
Yeah.
I do think that's how grown adults who had been friends for such a long time and had played together for such a long time would respond.
Yeah.
So he's practicing his serve. He's got like the tubes that the balls come in, and he's setting them up and trying to hit that exact spot with his serve, which is like not easy to do.
No, he's crushing it though. And I bet if you're on that level, that does not surprise me that you could do that.
Yeah. And essentially, Kirsten Dunst interrupts his practice.
Yes, she pursues him.
Yeah, she does. I do really like about this movie that I think she's a fully fleshed out character. I think she makes her own decisions. She's not a damsel in distress. She does go after him. I wish this movie passed the Bechdel test, but it does not.
No, it does not.
I paid attention to it this time when I watched it, and I was really sad because I do feel like she's a very well-rounded character.
She is, but did you notice that there's only, I think, of people who have lines, 5 women in this movie total who have lines.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
I apologize on the front end.
But I think part of that is because we're seeing it from Paul Bettany's perspective.
Yes,
Yeah.
which changes the dynamic a lot.
And he's playing in the male tournament, so he's going to interact with mostly men. So she starts serving, she gets multiples in a row, and they start kind of placing bets where he's like, I'll, hit another one and it'll be 10 quid, or hit another one, it'll be fish and chips. And she finally says, if you can make this one, I'll sleep with you. And he totally blows it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a romantic comedy joke I can get behind.
Yeah, it was honestly very, very funny.
So he misses that shot. He says, fish and chips it is then. And her dad basically shows up and pulls her away. Her dad, played by Sam Neill of Jurassic Park fame.
Who is amazing, and he honestly does a great job.
And I dare say Sam Neill has like the hardest line to walk in this film of like being kind of a dick about their relationship, but not to the point where he's the villain. Because I feel like he's pretty well rounded as the movie goes on.
I sort of agree because he's played like the gatekeeper for his daughter, Kirsten Dunst, right? And he does walk that line of sort of being sweet and sort of having decent-ish boundaries,
Yeah.
especially more towards the end.
And you could tell he kind of likes Paul Bettany at the end.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, I do think he's not great towards the beginning of the film.
I feel like I understand his motivation, though.
Same.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like he has more characterization than Kirsten Dunst does.
I can see that.
And so that's where I was kind of like, yeah, I get him. He's great. We do cut to a scene, arguably from the next day, where she hits a ball, they call it out, she yells at the ref, but then she comes back and immediately wins the next serve. So like, she is unflappable. She's going to win no matter what, basically is what the movie is establishing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Paul Bettany and Jamie Lannister basically saying, when's your match? It's with that young guy. They point him out in a restaurant, and it's a young Indian guy.
Yeah, he's like 16 years old.
Yes. And they basically say all the young guys are out to destroy us. We reveal that this 16-year-old kid beat Jamie Lannister last year. And he warns him to watch out for his backhand.
I love this scene because Jamie Lannister's like, all men that age want to kill their father, and we are older, and therefore represent their fathers.
Yeah.
And we do get this internal monologue from Paul Bettany that's like, this is the end. This is where my career is going to end. But then, kind of luck of the draw, he beats that kid.
Yeah, so, I mean, I like it. He's like walking out like, well, I mean, I don't want to go out badly in the first round. It would be great if I could win some sets, but I don't want to go out badly in the first round. And then he does break the guy's serve, and then he he wins.
We cut to back at his parents' house where we're seeing that there's bunnies in their garden. It's very, very cute. And his mom and dad, even though they're not interacting with each other, they're listening to the radio of the match. And they're not admitting that they're both listening to it.
I think the dad's actually watching the TV that's in his treehouse, and the mom is out there in the garden listening.
Yes.
She's like, I'm not interested in the match. I'm just out here to garden or whatever. But she's really out there to listen to the match.
Absolutely.
And we do see the bunny, but then at the end of the movie, we see them eating the bunny.
Yeah, that's fair, because bunnies ruin gardens.
Well, but maybe don't eat it. Whatever. I didn't like that very much.
We didn't have to see it die.
But we did have to see them grill it? Like, I don't know.
Well, I took that as him doing something for her because the bunnies were ruining her garden, so he took care of the problem with both arson and murdering animals. So we're back at Christian Grey again.
I 100% just want to watch him running around the backyard trying to capture that bunny.
So we cut to a press conference where they're asking Paul Bettany about the person he just beat.
Only 3 reporters in the whole press conference.
There's only like 3 reporters. This is where we find out that it's his 13th Wimbledon. So he's basically been playing since he was 18, or at least playing at that level since he was 18.
Yeah. I do love that he's just super charming with them, but they don't really care that much. They're there because it's an oddity that he made it through the first round. So the 3 reporters that gave a shit about that are there. And then he starts to announce his retirement. And then like the Justin Bieber of Wimbledon walks in. And everyone, did you guys notice this? There were only 3 reporters there. But when he walks in, other reporters just swarm him. Like there were 3. And then when he walks in, there are 20. And he goes on to announce his retirement, but none of them are listening.
It was amazing.
Anyway, so that guy comes in. There's a million paparazzi. No one cares that Paul Bettany's retiring, and it's a wash. That press conference is useless. We cut to Kirsten Dunst going into the hotel through just a sea of paparazzi, and the other tennis guy, the one that we just saw be pretty famous, is trying to get her attention, and she does not care.
She blows him off.
So we see Paul Bettany get to his room, and she's left him a message about fish and chips.
And he's super surprised.
I would be too.
I would be too. His internal monologue is so funny because he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He tries out different types of underwear, which I thought was pretty funny, and ends up going commando.
Yeah.
Like that's what he settles on, which is great.
Sometimes you got to have that commando confidence, man.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, Mikey?
No.
He gets ready and he goes up to meet her with fish and chips in tow.
Yeah, they're wrapped up, but yeah, he brings them with him.
And this is the first time that we hear about the comet. It's on the news in the background.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he's cut himself shaving. He's got like a little tiny piece of toilet paper stuck to his face.
It is cute when she takes off his bloody...
Yeah, that was real cute. I thought it was funnier when he was like, hey, I brought fish and chips. Are you hungry? And she's like, not yet.
What she basically does is like, leave those fish and chips there. Do you want to fool around before the match? Because that's the real reason I called you.
Yeah, she asks like, what's your policy on fooling around before a match? Because fooling around can be really good for your game. And, he's like, I haven't done the proper research. I feel like he's very charming.
It's definitely something I would have said.
Absolutely. I don't think it would have worked as well for you or I, but like, I think he crushes it. He's so charming.
Yeah. These are the parts of the movies that I like because they are very, very fun together. They fool around. They do eventually eat the fish and chips.
Yeah, they do.
But then she basically tells him no one can know about this, especially not her dad.
Yeah, that's like a real Mikey move. Like, hey, I realize we just fooled around and then we ate food, but like, you gotta go and don't tell anyone about this.
Especially my mom.
Too bad she's listening to this. Does it make your serve mushy?
It makes my serve mushy. She explains that her dad is not pro her hooking up with dudes during a tournament because he thinks it messes with her game.
Right.
I do like that her dad doesn't care that she's hooking up with people. It's just during the tournament. Like, he is fine with her being a sexual being, which I think is nice to see in a movie like this. And she's very sex positive, which is also nice to see in a movie like this. But he just doesn't want her doing it because it messes with her game.
And you can tell when she gives this talk to Paul Bettany that he's like, whatever, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where he's like, all of this is unexpected gains already. Who'd have thought that a human skeleton wrapped in skin could achieve this?
I watched this with my mom, and she was like, he's not attractive. And I was like,
He has his moments. He has his moments.
Yeah, I mean, when he's being charming in the hotel, he can get it. When he's sliding around on the court, no.
Yeah. They end up hooking up again after that. They basically stayed all night hooking up.
Yeah.
And we know because the next day while he's playing, he's hungover.
Yeah, well, and he's like worn out and tired, and he's like, man, I can't do this.
Yeah. And he's losing. Like he
Yeah.
is losing. And we cut away to the old ladies at his health club back home talking about his stamina.
I did love the old lady cutaways at the club because they were so funny.
And his internal monologue is basically like, well, at least there's no one here to see this.
Yeah.
And then she shows up. So he has to basically fight back and start winning. This is also the first time that we reveal that he has, I kept calling it a caddy. I don't know what it is in tennis.
It's a ball boy.
it's coincidence that guy stays with him the whole time.
Yeah, that
Okay,
ball boy is just like he's working Wimbledon. And I don't even know
Yeah.
if you work or volunteer. Like, I don't know if those are paid positions because they're
I
like
don't know.
kids normally. But he becomes like Paul Bettany's good luck charm. Or at least I think he sort of sees him that way in the movie.
Yeah. She shows up and he starts winning.
Yes.
And now he's through to the second round. So
And he's super surprised. The whole monologue when she shows up and he starts playing better, he's like, I don't know how I'm playing better. And it's really funny.
yeah. Now, at this point, Sam Neill pulls her away because she's got other things to do.
Yeah.
And essentially, everyone is surprised because the person he beat was seeded.
Yes.
And he hasn't beat a seeded person in the last 3 years, it establishes. So he's been bad for a while, but he's been extra bad for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Then we reveal that his next match is against his practice partner, Dieter, Jamie Lannister, or Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Jamie Lannister. His name's Jamie Lannister.
Jamie
from now.
Lannister.
Yeah, we're not gonna try. Yeah,
He's a great actor.
he is a great actor. He's not great in this movie, and I think it's because he was forced to play a German. I have to point this out about the match he won. I know why he started winning, and it's not because Kirsten Dunst showed up. Well, her name's Lizzie. It's not because Lizzie showed up. It's because the guy had his hat on backwards, but he was facing the sun. So every time he's on that side of the court, he couldn't do anything because the sun was in his eyes, and he's not smart enough to turn the bill of his hat around so it blocks out the sun.
So he calls the hotel to try and talk to Kirsten Dunst and starts talking before she officially answers the phone, and we find out that he's talking to her dad.
Yeah.
So funny. And he hangs up on him.
This is while they're walking down the street, he and Jamie Lannister. And I love the conversation they're having because they're trying to pull out of each other what their weaknesses are. Like, so how's that? It's that bad knee, right? You have that bad knee, right, Mikey?
Well, how's that shoulder? Yeah.
I really like that. You can tell they're very, very close. And they don't want to be against each other, but they are, and they're still going to love each other. They're just like giving each other shit. I liked it.
There's such a rare representation of healthy relationships in film in general, but I think
Agree.
male friendships as well. I mean, this was like a very healthy male friendship of like, did you meet a special lady? I mean, like, even when he talks about him dating someone or hooking up with someone, it's done in a very respectful way, and it's not like super trashy, and like it just seems it's nice to have like realistic relationships portrayed in a movie.
Agreed. But before he goes on that walk with Jamie Lannister and they talk about that stuff, he goes back in and does another press conference, and he walks in and he's like, I thought I had done my last one of these.
Oh, yeah.
And the press corps goes, yeah, we did too. I thought that was awesome. But he's super charming. That's where we find out that he has to face his best friend.
And the movie kind of sets it up like, oh, this is going to be like a conflict. Like it kind of has like musical cues and like kind of scene shot where like, but then they're like walking through the park and it's nice and charming again.
Yeah.
Now, he does go to the clubhouse where he runs into friends, basically tells people that he's looking for Lizzie, and they say that he should look for Jake.
Yeah, Jake being that like number one male player that he's going to play in the finals, but the guy who used to be hooking up with Lizzie. Now, did you guys notice that this is like early 2000s, and the woman he runs into who gives him that information introduces her partner, which I thought was really, really cool to see that sort of like positive lesbian relationship that early in the 2000s.
Yeah,
I think it's because the bulk of this movie, I think, was made in Europe or in the UK.
that makes sense.
It's Wimbledon, so that does make sense. But I thought that was cool. Like, you just didn't see much of that early 2000s.
And it's not played up. Like, everything is just kind of done like real classy.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like the most normal thing. It's almost like a throwaway. They didn't need to do that, but they did.
Right.
They included it, which I thought was cool.
So he runs into Sam Neill in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill basically says, I don't want my daughter to have any distractions. He says, do you see me as a distraction? And he says, stop looking for her. Stop calling.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill's not overtly mean. He's just pretty clinical about it.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany is trying to be charming and stuff. He's like, well, do you see me as a distraction? He's like,
Right.
yeah, listen, dude, just don't call and don't try to find her. It's just a thing. Let's just drop this.
But I do get the impression that if they weren't at Wimbledon, if they weren't at a tennis match, he wouldn't care.
I think he actually liked him.
Yeah. Same.
I think he ends up liking him. I don't think he knows him at this point, but I do think by the end of the movie that he likes him and approves. He just wishes it wasn't happening during Wimbledon.
Yes.
I think at this point, Sam Neill sees Paul Bettany as just the next guy.
Yes. Now, at this point, the games get rained out because it is the UK, and they have to pause. And as he's leaving, essentially the place where all the courts and the games are, he sees a hand waving from a car.
Well, yeah, because him and Jamie Lannister, they're like still picking on each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he's like, who's that? And Jamie Lannister's like, who's that? He's like, well, that's who I'm going to spend my night with.
Yeah.
Well, he says, I think I will. And Jamie Lannister says, I think you will too. So they go out for sushi. And this is where she reveals that she knew who he was when he came into her room initially. So what she says is, I saw you play last year. So it was when he was super bad and was ranked in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And essentially he loses because he was kind to the ball girl.
Yeah, she gets hit with like a 140-mile-an-hour ball, and he ends up picking her up and really caring about her and taking her off and make sure she finds the first aid kit and all that other stuff.
But then she says, I thought you were an asshole to lose like that when you played so beautifully.
Yeah.
That is what she says.
Because she values winning above everything.
Yes.
I would argue that she has a vulnerability problem. And she's saying in the same sentence, I saw what kind of person you are when no one is looking, and I was attracted to that kind of kindness. But also, I'm afraid to talk like that because I'm really competitive and I'm not very vulnerable and my relationships are short.
I'm going to say none of that is said in the film. And this is you putting yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
But I am also going to say that within the last year, she would have been ranked in the top 10. And for me, it is unrealistic that she would have been watching a match with someone ranked in the hundreds. To me, it is almost unfathomable that she would have even seen this match. And the movie doesn't need it.
I liked it because for me, it sets up that she maybe wasn't going to pursue him at Wimbledon until he walked into her room, but she always had a thing for him, even though they had never met. So I liked that part of it. And to me, it's not outlandish for someone who's ranked in the 100s to be seen by someone who's ranked highly, just because they still go to the same tournaments.
That's true.
I mean, I've been to a lot of events like this where, you're competing at an elite level in something, right? And there's a lot of downtime as a performer. We used to joke about it. It's like the big hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
You rush to these cities and then you sit around for 18 hours until your turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that where you're watching other people. So I sort of bought that and I liked it. I did think it was really sweet that he openly gives her credit in this scene for his last win. He was like, I was out of the match until I saw that you were there watching me and I wanted to turn it on for you. And he legit gives her credit for his win.
And that compliment, it was a bullseye. You could just tell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I must just be coming at this front. Being a wildly competitive person, it's not enough for me to be in a male-dominated entertainment field. I have to do death matches of insulting people. That's how bad it is. And it is the same thing of roast battle. I show up at 10, but I don't go on until 1 because I'm the main battle. But I don't sit around and watch the early ones. I'm preparing. I'm doing my own thing. And so for me, putting myself in her shoes, I'm like, I would have never seen that match. I got better things to do.
But you're comparing an event that goes on for 4 hours at a club to an event that goes on for 2 weeks.
But then she's playing through those 2 weeks. So, like, wouldn't she be preparing for her own matches?
You guys are really parsing this out.
Yeah.
It is a movie.
Yeah, I know. I just felt like I was like, this is unnecessary. And to me, within this world, makes no sense.
No, Paige, we all have one of these little things that happens in a movie
know.
that we can't let go of. And I'm giving it to you. I get it. I just liked it because I thought it'd get some characterization. But I can see your point as well.
So we cut to a montage of them basically falling in love in the park, scored to the song This Year's Love, which is in like every romantic movie.
Yes. So good.
It is a great song. Here's what's terrible. I love this song.
I love David Gray in general.
I think the first time I heard this song was Girl Next Door, which I do love and we absolutely need to do at some point.
We have to do it.
But now whenever I hear this song in movies, I'm just like, oh, I love this song.
Yes. I'm so glad you liked it because I was like, this is cliche, but like good cliche.
Yeah.
And they are walking around this park, and it's the park that's right by the palace. I can't remember the name of it. I was there last year, Mikey.
Oh, here we go.
And I'm sorry, I'm world traveled, Mikey. But they look up and they see the comet, which is not Halley's Comet. It's some other comet.
No, it's a fictional random comet.
Oh, okay. So it's like a Halley's Comet that they couldn't get the rights to, I guess. They couldn't afford the NASA rights to Halley's Comet.
And she basically tells him to wish on his next match, which again is setting up like she only cares about winning. That's where her mind is at.
I think he wishes for happiness, but not with I think he wishes for outside tennis stuff. And I think it kind of implies that.
I would agree with you. I mean, that's headcanon, and I cannot prove it based on the things on the screen, but I would agree with you.
I think he's wishing, like, I wish I could feel like this with her every day, or like have something like this real.
Mikey, I could just picture you by yourself, hands in your pockets, walking around the Parthenon downtown Nashville, looking up at the stars, thinking these like thoughts. And that warms my heart so much for you.
I mean, that's a pretty good insight about who I am.
And this next conversation, she basically is telling him, like, you have to beat your friend. You have to kill your friend in the next round. Everyone's competed in something. Have you destroyed a friend in competition?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did it make you feel bad?
No.
Oh, yes.
Not at all.
Yeah. It didn't.
It's complex, isn't it? I mean, I felt really good that I won, you know, but I also like, I don't want to hurt this friendship.
I'll argue that if you have a good friendship, then it wouldn't destroy it. And in the situation that I was in, it was clear that I was going to win just because the thing we were competing in, just by happenstance, I was a lot better than him at. And he's a lot better than me at other things. And he was like completely fine with it. It wasn't a problem, you know?
Right.
But it just happened that we were together and I destroyed him. But like he would destroy me in almost any other thing. It's just like I was better at that.
I think that's something this movie does really well when it portrays their friendship, is that it doesn't hurt their friendship at all for him to beat him.
Yeah.
But there is those like weird anxiety emotions of like, will this affect our friendship?
Yeah, I have a really good friend that I have beat twice at roast battle and beat in overtime twice.
Oh.
And it made us closer friends because he was just like, damn it, I almost got you. And then there's constant like rematch, and it's like a thing, but it's super fun.
Like Hulk Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So James McAvoy bets against his brother again.
So he like is positioned in the first time we meet him like he might be a professional cyclist, but the only time we ever see him riding in like legit cyclist gear is down to this betting place. We never see him doing anything like professional on any level.
Yeah, his character is baffling but also really enjoyable.
I loved him. Yeah, I loved him so much because he's consistently betting against his brother. Is this when he meets that woman?
Yes, this is where he meets the girl.
I love it.
Where she's like, I'm passionate about chat rooms.
And he's like, same, or whatever you said. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So we cut to him and Jamie Lannister are in the steam room after their match. And essentially everyone's saying like he destroyed his friend. He didn't just beat his friend. He like murdered his friend. But they're still friends about it. And Jamie Lannister says, you hit from the soul, from the heart. And he's like, oh, it's the girl from the taxi. And this is where they talk about Lizzie for the first time because they're friends and they're sharing it. And it's kind of nice.
A few things about this scene, because this really touched me in a very sad, special way. I loved Jamie Lannister's reaction to losing. because I feel like that is the harder thing to handle. And he just does such a good job of, you beat me, but we're brothers. I love you. You need to move on and just crush this next guy. And then they start talking about Lizzie. And I did really love Paul Bettany was like, do you think I'm dumb enough to get involved with a woman at Wimbledon? And they both say at the same time, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely are dumb enough to do that.
Well, he does. He says you're playing with like heart and passion that I have not seen you play with before.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sweet.
It is really sweet. So he gets back to his hotel room. He's got 8 messages. One is from the club, the health club, where he's taking a job, where the ladies send their regards.
Yeah.
One is from Lizzie telling him that she has a free day the next day.
Yes.
One's from his mother. And then he has to answer the door because the doorbell rings, and it's Ron, Jon Favreau, who is his
Fucking love Jon Favreau, dude.
former agent.
Right?
I think he's his current agent, but because he's ranked 119, you never hear from your agent.
Right.
Which they sort of talk about here.
They do, because he says, I called you a year ago, and he's like, I'm more of an email guy. And he's like, that's a lie.
Yeah. And I love that Pete calls him out on it. He's like giving him shit. He's like, now that I'm hot stuff, you want to be here to make money off of me. And Ron does a good job of being like, hey, I only make money if you make money, so let's make money together. And
Well, he's like, I sell a product, and if the product sucks, I can't sell it. But
Yeah.
you're hot
Yeah,
right now.
exactly.
Do you want to make money or not?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and he negotiates at half rate, which is insane.
And Ron's like, no, listen, everyone pays 10%. And Pete's like, well, fine, I'll find someone else. He's like, okay, 5 sounds good. 5 sounds good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this movie only makes sense with Paul Bettany being like super likable to everyone in his life. It's like most people would not be this nice to him, but he's like super charming and nice to everybody.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, agents are bottom feeders. An agent would absolutely take that deal just to get back into the running.
I think so too, yeah.
So Ron, his agent, tells him that there's a cocktail party that they basically have to go to that night. They go to the cocktail party. Lizzie's there, and they pretend not to know each other, and Ron sees through it immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. And they tell him that he can have 10% of their kids.
Yeah. And agents are like bottom feeders. He's going to take 10% of those kids because there's no way those kids at the end are not tennis pros.
Yes. Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Absolutely. This is also where we find out that he's also representing Jake, the other one. So he's representing a number of people at Wimbledon.
Yeah, all 3 of them. Both
Yeah.
Lizzie, Paul, and Jake.
Sam Neill is trying to ruin it.
Like he always does.
Like he always does. And Kirsten Dunst and Paul Bettany escape into
It's the London Eye.
I thought it was the London Eye, but then they seem to be able to get in and out of it a little too easy. And I think that's just movie magic.
That's because they cheat out of it. So they cheat out of it because they're like at the top of the London Eye, and then they turn around and Jake is there, and Jake's like confronting Lizzie, Kirsten Dunst, and like really sort of insults her. So Paul punches him in the face. But what really would have happened if they were at the top of the London Eye is they would have had to stay there for 30 minutes until it rides all the way down with Jake with a black eye. But they cheat out of it. They like run out of there and then go immediately out.
I love the witty dialogue because Jake basically implies that he like slut shames her.
Yeah.
So Paul punches him and he's like, oh, I've never done that before. And she's like, well, you were so good at it.
Yeah.
But he's like, ow, my hand. But as they're running out, like photographers are taking their photo and they're sort of becoming a story that's going on during Wimbledon. Like their romance is.
Yes. So Sam Neill's mad. He watches them drive away. And they're kissing. They almost cause a car accident.
Yeah. Oh, they drive for hours. They leave this party. It's probably 8:30 at night when they leave. And they drive around until sunrise. They literally are driving to Scotland.
Having been to England, you could drive across England in just a couple hours.
Yeah, no joke. I drove from London to Scotland. It did not take that long.
Yeah. It seems like they just drove around all night is what it seems like.
Which, if they had a scene where they were just talking all night, driving around, could have been cute. I just think this was an inconsistency, and it drives me crazy every time I see this movie. Yeah. Because I'm like, what are they doing all night? Because then they stay up the whole other night. They haven't slept in like 48 hours.
We do find out they have a conversation like kind of right after, because they drive out into his hometown, and that's when they kind of start talking in the car. Yeah. And she says that her parents are a mess, and that her mom, I think, wanted to be a singer.
Yeah, but she couldn't sing, so didn't work out too well.
It didn't work out great. This is also where we find out that his parents are a mess because they're together but not happy.
Yeah.
She says she doesn't ever want to get married. He basically says this is why we love what we do, because you don't have to. You're just constantly touring. It's new people. And this is where he jokingly calls her Leslie as a way to like, yeah, new people, whoever.
Yeah. I love that she grabs his finger and like bends it back.
Yes.
I love that they're like playing with each other like this. It's so cute. Yeah.
Very fun. So they get back to his flat and they're like pushing the door in, making out, like,
Oh, yeah.
ideally to just tumble onto whatever flat surface they can. But James McAvoy and his foursome are there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing. And it's funny because at first it's just James McAvoy and the girl he met at the sports betting shop or whatever.
At the
but
bookie
then,
store.
Yeah, the bookie store or whatever. And
Yeah.
then a dude pops out with a pizza with no shirt. And there's another girl. And you're like, what is happening in this
Yeah.
flat?
And the guy's like, I only ordered 4 personal pan pizzas.
Yes.
But this is when James McAvoy's girl starts trying to take a picture of them together, right? And
Right.
like she's like, it's just digital, it'll be fine or whatever. Which I don't know why it would be
Yeah.
fine that it's digital
It's
or not.
digital. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so he rushes all of them out. And then James McAvoy comes back in just to confirm that he did have sex in his brother's bed.
And he
with
might want to
all
change the
4 of them.
sheets.
Yeah, he might want to change those sheets. I thought that was hilarious.
I thought it was a crude joke, but also like practical. I mean, that's nice to tell somebody.
It is. Hey, just a heads up. It's real sticky in there.
And I also like that Kristen Dunst thought the whole thing was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah,
just thought
she thought it was
like,
funny.
She didn't get mad. Yeah, I like that.
We cut to what is likely a few hours later. There's clothes all over the floor. They've clearly had a picnic on the carpet, and they are in bed. They've clearly spent all day in bed.
And Paul Bettany wakes up with Kirsten Dunst staring at him.
She is staring at him and kisses Paul Bettany and then goes outside and calls her dad.
So she calls her dad and basically says, I really needed to do this. I'll see you at practice in the morning.
Yeah.
And then this is where Paul Bettany comes in shirtless and sweats. And you're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You're like, listen, Scarecrow, you can get it. Oh, man.
We got that London face with the Iggy Pop body. So they work out together.
They go for a run.
They run 10 miles.
Yeah.
Which sounds awful to me.
Oh, that's not that bad. Did you hear when he was like, I've been running a long time and I got long legs. You'll never catch me. And then they start running
And
and
he
she's
trails
in front.
her the whole time. Yeah.
And she even says, why are you behind me? And he's like, I got a better view. Like, it's really cute. Even in these like throwaway lines, it's really cute.
Well, and they get back from the run and they're kind of just on the marina and he just kind of like side hugs her. And I was like, I get it. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
They go down below the boardwalk where they find an abandoned Ferris wheel and a tennis court and also bumper cars.
I got the impression that the tennis court was like run down, no one uses it, and they
Right.
stored like old bumper cars there. Yeah.
But we find out that this is where he first learned to play tennis, and they end up playing kind of an imaginary tennis game, which she narrates hilariously. This is one of my
Yes.
favorite scenes for her. And he says, there's something I haven't told you. This is my last tournament, no matter what happens. And she says, but you're doing so great. And he's like, yeah, but I would have to keep winning to like, I can't sustain this forever. My back hurts. Basically.
I'm an old man, Kirsten. I can't keep doing this forever.
My spine is made of Pringles. Yeah. So they look up and they see the comet.
Yeah.
Which, and in my notes, it just says the comet, period. I think this is a metaphor, ? Then we see James McAvoy betting on his brother again, and we find out that he sold the photos of them together. And they're watching the news the next morning. They see her dad on the news, and he's outside the apartment.
I thought this was insane because they're just like, they're like in the afterglow, like they had been boning all night. And then they're like just flipping around the TV, just like having a lazy morning. And then they see her dad coming up their walk on the news.
Yes.
And they're like, no. So like she gets up and like he's putting his pants on and shit and she has to hide. I thought it was so funny.
And he basically, Sam Neill is like, hey, this needs to stop because she's falling for you,
Yeah.
which is a disaster.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the most charming part is when he's like, look, I know Lizzie likes to have her fun a lot. And then
Yeah.
Paul Bettany cuts to her like,
Yeah.
Well, and she's even like behind the pillar, like, no, that's not true.
What? No.
So cute.
But Sam Neill basically says, or I guess he argues, you have to ask what Lizzie wants. And he says she wants what she's always wanted, what she wants more than anything, and implying that it's to win Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And she says, I still want it. I want to win. I'm sorry. He says, we got a lot of work to do. And they leave. And he chases after her. And she says, basically, this is my decision. We can have fun after the tournament. And basically her dad confirms that she won't be at the hotel.
And to not look for her.
And if you're together, she can't play.
yeah.
And I did like that she sets this boundary. Like, she was there with him. She made the choice to go there with him. But when her dad shows up, she sort of has this realization and makes the choice to leave and focus on Wimbledon. And she sort of sticks to it.
And she doesn't say we're never going to be together. She says, we'll see each other after the tournament.
Yeah, call me in a week.
Well, and here's where the movie for me kind of gets worse, because I want this movie to be these two characters learning that winning isn't everything and their profession isn't everything.
Yeah.
Because they're both kind of on the same track there.
Right.
She rejects him because she's all about winning, and then like he was all, he's trying to give it up to like have more, and we don't really go there. And I think it would have been a really interesting story to tell, where she cared less about winning because of him. Yeah. And he found happiness outside of his profession that he was scared of.
Because of her.
But because it sets it up perfectly at this point. Like, okay, this is it's internal conflict for both of them.
Yeah. And we cut to the next day where Tom Cavendish, which is round 4, I guess, is beating the shit out of Paul Bettany.
Oh, also, in context, when this movie came out, a British person hasn't won Wimbledon in like 100 years or something. I'm not good at tennis facts. So that's why everybody's like super excited about it. And Tom Cavendish is like the top ranked British player, so he's like the best hope.
Right. And at this point, I just typed into my notes, how am I only halfway through this movie? Because it's not a long movie, but a full movie's worth of shit has already happened.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was to come. So we cut back to Sam Neill and Kirsten Dunster in the car, and she's listening to his game. Cavendish lands on his ankle. Essentially, he wins almost kind of by default because Cavendish can't really play on that ankle.
Yeah, but he makes him play it out. Cavendish could have retired the match, but he decided to play on, but he does beat him because he's not hurt at this point.
Right.
Coming out of that match, there's a crowd of girls, and his practice partner says almost everybody loves you because essentially the UK is now torn, where they're like, Cavendish is our best hope, and now we only have this guy who up until like this week lost to everybody.
Yeah.
So he walks over to Lizzie's match where she's winning, and he talks to Ron because, again, same agent.
Yeah.
And Ron basically is saying, I'm debating whether or not, like, I'm torn between her and you, and whether or not I should tell you where she is.
And they both talk about her in a not a bad way. Like, he's like, she lives, like, she's so fearless over like life and tennis.
Yes.
And Ron's like, yeah, she makes a decision and she just goes for it.
Yes. And so Ron does the same and tells him that they're at 32 Kensington Place, first floor apartment.
Which I thought was a weird move. I still can see this is a weird move for Ron.
I think so too. I'm also not a huge fan of, after her saying wait until after Wimbledon, he still goes after her.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. But I think that's why he apologizes later. But we'll get to all
Yes.
that.
Yeah. He goes to the apartment. There's a dog.
It was a very like Peter Pan moment where he's like climbing the trellis or whatever, and the dog starts barking, and then he threatens to kill himself to the dog, and the dog somehow comprehends and leaves him alone.
Because dogs understand English, Todd.
Macy does not understand you. That's why she's crazy.
She knows what I'm talking about.
No, she does not.
He says, I'll jump. Do you want that on your conscience?
Yeah.
And it makes like,
so he bursts into what he believes to be Lizzie's room, but it's Sam Neill's room.
Oh,
so he goes to the next window over and gets into Lizzie's room. She says, I need you to go.
Well, first he says, I can't go 24 hours without seeing you, it seems.
Yes.
And she's like, I've missed you, Peter. And like, so she had a chance to be like, look, I set this boundary, you need to go.
Well, she does. She says, I need you to go. And he says, people have fallen in love before. And she says, is that what we're doing here? And Then she says, good thing you didn't go to the wrong room. And he says, I did, but your dad's a very quick shag.
I love that part. It was so funny.
But I mean, he definitely just goes in that room and tells her he's falling in love with her.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is why later in the movie, when she finally says it, he's like, I thought I was alone in that department.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The big L word, she's kind of into it. She like let him stay because of that, I think.
She let him stay, and it's implied that they had sex that night. So he kisses her goodbye, and he's out the next morning before she wakes up. He goes back to his parents' house. It's semifinals day. Then back to Wimbledon. He's winning. Then we cut in between their two matches where he's winning, he's doing great, and she chokes.
Yeah. I really loved the way this was shot and like told story-wise, because we're seeing both of their matches, but we're hearing his internal monologue talking about choking and how he has to overcome what happened 3 or 5 years ago when he lost that he choked really hard in that match.
Mm-hmm.
And like John McEnroe is the PA or the announcer guy is talking about his last match where he choked super hard and all that stuff. So like we're seeing him overcome it, but then her fall victim to it at the same
Right.
time. I thought it was really, really cleverly written.
He only needs the 1 point, but he dives to catch, to basically stop a ball from, landing. And he gets it, but he has thrashed his back.
Yeah.
This is where his mom climbs up into the treehouse because they're now both admitting that they're invested in his success and they want to know what happens. And this is where we find out that his dad killed the rabbits from his mom's garden and they are eating them.
I got teared up in this scene because he's hurt. His mom and dad are like watching on the old like black and white TV they have in the treehouse or whatever. And he's saying, get up, you'll be fine, get up or whatever. And the mom says, he can't hear you. And the dad legit like takes a beat and goes, he can. And I teared up a little bit. I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. I love this man. Like he's the sweetest dad ever.
And he basically swallows his pain, does the last shot and wins, and she loses.
Yeah.
And it is devastating for her.
Yeah. Well, because she was expected to win and she got out in the semifinals. Yeah.
So we cut to, he is basically at her apartment and they're arguing and she is furious. And like, there's a part of me that's like, I get why she's mad. She said stay away and he came anyway. Yeah. And she accuses him. She basically says, you had to screw me before the finals. That's why you're here.
Which he denies.
He denies, but it's a very painful and real fight.
It is.
Oh, yeah. And then she says the only thing you actually fell in love with was winning these 2 weeks, not me.
Yeah.
And I do feel like one of her lines of dialogue was like the pitch for this movie. And the whole like, love means nothing in tennis. It only means you lose. And I was like, that's what this movie was based on right there. Like that fight, someone had that thought and then wrote this movie around it.
Yeah, I think so.
That's why it takes place at a tennis match.
So as he's leaving, her father is watching her tapes and he catches it and he says she's dropping her arm too soon after the toss for her serve. And he's right. Essentially, I think that's a piece of, for us where it's like, he may not always be the best player, but he knows the game,
Right.
It's not an accident that he's there.
Right. I also feel like that's a turning point for Sam Neill to be like, maybe he actually is a pretty decent guy.
Yeah.
Also, they're having a knockdown yelling match about falling in love. Sam Neill is quietly in the next room watching videotape.
Yeah.
So he heard the whole argument. He heard Paul Bettany declare his love for his daughter, and then she being like, you don't love me, you just love winning. And then he has to just pretend he didn't hear any of that for the awkward march out of the apartment.
Yeah.
But that's why I think Sam Neill sort of has weird but decent boundaries.
Yes. He's a stage parent, but he grows out of it. We cut to Paul Bettany's getting acupuncture and he's kind of over it. He's like, my back hurts. I lost the girl I love. I'm not feeling it. And Ron, his agent, is like, you're the new spokesperson for Frito-Lay.
Their chip is called Surprisingly Zesty, which is honestly, I dig it. I would like to be known as Surprisingly Zesty, so that's great.
I like this part because he's super depressed and upset, and he's got, You got Jamie Lannister and the agent, and they're all just like broing out like, you can do this, guy. I know you're really sad, but you're a great guy. You got this.
My favorite is he's like, I could take another dozen of those, what do you call them? Cucumber sandwiches. Brit's got a name for everything.
Yeah. I love that later in that scene, you see Paul Bettany climbing out of the bed with Ron and Jamie in the bed. Like they all slept in the same bed. I thought that was so funny.
And this is where the comet disappears.
Yeah.
So he sneaks out the luggage door, but the paparazzi finds him.
Yeah.
He drives to her apartment, but the dog is there. So he goes back to his parents' house where he walks in on his parents having sex. The thing that they kind of set up the first time he went home is what actually happens in this scene.
Okay, listen, I've never done that, but like I think that would be a horrible thing to walk in on. And then they offer to be like make him breakfast.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to have stopped my parents from, having sex and then have them make me breakfast.
I could take some eggs.
I'm not going to turn breakfast down. Yeah.
Mikey, what is wrong with you? I'm not going to turn breakfast down. Like,
well, I definitely don't want them to like go back to having sex if I'm there.
I would just be like, listen, I'll go to Denny's or whatever the Denny's version of that is in the UK, and then
see you guys in 20 minutes. Bye.
Yeah.
He does offer to leave, and they are like, no, just have breakfast. The moment's ruined.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where his dad kind of sits down with him and is like, hey, your mom and I's relationship wasn't great, but we kind of bonded over caring about your journey over these 2 weeks, which is a little weird, but whatever. And it's kind of brought them back together, and they have kind of like a family breakfast that morning where they're like, we should all do better to love and support each other without judgment. And as she's saying without judgment, she yells at James McAvoy to like, stop biting your fingernails. A toast to the family.
Yeah.
So this is the part where we usually talk about, will they still be together after this? I definitely think the family will still be terrible after this movie.
Oh,
is
yeah,
over.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this whole talk is BS. And I don't even think Paul Bettany is buying it at this point.
I don't think so either, but he does give them tickets.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because this is where he's like, I don't believe in luck, and I'd love for you guys to be at my last game.
Well, he even says, he's like, I'm probably going to lose this match, and it's my last professional tennis match. I want you guys there either way, right?
Yeah.
And then James McAvoy, not to be outdone, says, oh, so the other guy's the good bet? Like,
So what you're saying is Jake's the safe bet then? Yes.
Yeah. So right after the breakfast, Paul Bettany goes up to his bedroom in his parents' house, and his dad comes in there, and they have like this amazing, amazing, sweet conversation where his dad talks about how proud of him he is and how like, we've always known you've had this in you. Like I started crying during this scene because this really reminded me of my dad, who was like, I benefited from having a dad whose dad, my granddad, was a horrible dad. So my dad was amazing at telling all of us kids like how much he loved us and how proud of us he was. And man, and I lost my dad in 2017. So like that is such a gift to have known that my dad was proud of me and loved me and stuff.
Aww.
So like thinking of all of those things, I think I cried more in this scene than at the end, because it just made me think of that again and just really like be grateful for that. I don't know. It was so sweet.
I see why you love that, but I definitely think that dad was not going to say that unless he was winning. So I think. So I don't think Paul Bettany really felt what you were feeling.
I mean, you're probably right. Yeah, that's fair.
It's finals day the next day. He's back at the hotel. He walks off the elevator, and the entire hotel staff are cheering for him. And my favorite is the guy who's like, an Englishman in the finals. I would love it. And then we cut after, and he's like, I don't even like tennis. Oh, man. So we cut to Lizzie, and they're watching the match, and they turn it off while they have breakfast.
Yeah, but they're clearly like packing up to go home, like to leave London.
And the dad's interested in it, but Lizzie's like, turn that off.
Yeah. Well, I think this is where we start to see that her dad was like, Peter's not such a bad guy, and I'm going to kind of keep an eye on this. So
I have to know how close to the airport their like Airbnb was, because his interview with that reporter starts when they're like about to leave the house.
Oh,
right?
And then it's still going when they get to the airport.
This is just because Todd, like myself, has been to London, and London Heathrow Airport is like an hour and a half away.
Oh my God. There's a lot of high roads in London.
Yeah. Heathrow ain't no joke.
Ain't no joke. And it is way outside the city. It's like a pain in the ass to get there.
So I guess the interview was going on for 4 hours.
Well, maybe they just were playing clips over and over again.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because his interview was pretty controversial.
Anyway, so they get to the airport. She leaves to take a walk, and her dad's like, well, the flight board's in half an hour. And I was like, it's an international flight. You wouldn't go anywhere. You would just stay right there to make sure you don't miss it. But so as she's walking through the airport, he's on every single screen. And this is where he gives his interview, where he basically is like, you know, the reason I've been winning is love of the game, but also he basically professes his love for her on TV.
I love this part because the famous tennis player, she's like really famous.
Yeah.
And she like works for HBO Sports. She's like, why do you think you're successful? He's like, love. And she's like, love of the game. He's like, yeah, but also more in the traditional sense.
Yeah. More like actual love. Like Lizzie is the reason I'm here today, he says. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and he says, she didn't let me down, I let her down, and I will be truly sorry. And Sam Neill watches it and is just like, oh shit. And he basically goes to get Kirsten Dunst to be like, you need to watch this. And he finds her watching it in the airport.
She's just like sitting next to this child with a handheld TV, and she's like creeping over his shoulder. I thought that was pretty funny.
This is where I started crying and then immediately stopped crying because there was another half hour of movie that was just tennis.
I did cry during this too, yeah.
Yeah, we cut to his friend who's basically, I have a new theory about tennis. You hit the ball back over the net as hard and as deep and as often as possible, which is just like, okay, that's like saying, I have a new theory about life. You get rich and then you die. Like, there's no details. They offer him the #1 dressing room, but he says that he'd rather stay where he is.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. His family and his agent are there.
Well, and his agent has both the flags.
Has both flags
because he represents both
Both
players.
of them, yes.
This is like an agent's wet dream because he's like in the finals of Wimbledon. No matter who wins, he wins.
Right.
Like he's just there to celebrate. He doesn't care about the match.
Yes. So he walks down the hallway with the other guy, Jake. Jake says, I tried to warn you about her. How's the weak back? And he just says, how's the weak mind?
Which is such a terrible insult.
No, I liked it. I thought it got inside his head.
No, here's what you got to do. He punched him in the jaw and he fell over. He should have been like, how's the weak back? I've been like, how's the weak jaw?
That actually would have been good, yeah.
It's right there. It's set up in the movie.
Yeah, you're right. I like it.
Yeah, I might have gone with something like, it was fine. I was on it all week with your girl. Like that, like. So they get to the set. Jake, I guess his last name is Hammond. Jake Hammond's going to serve.
Yeah.
And this is where we see that Paul Bettany has the same ball boy.
Yes.
And the serve, so Jake's first serve literally knocks the racket out of his hands. It's 144 miles an hour. The second serve hits the caddy, and that would have like broken that kid's jaw, I think.
Well, he hits him in the eye. He gets a big black eye.
Yeah, maybe that kid would be blind after. What the movie sets up is that Jake doesn't give a shit about the ball boy being hurt, but Paul Bettany does.
Well, yeah, because he literally did the same thing that Lizzie witnessed, and he carried that girl off the court when he had done it. But Hammond doesn't care, Jake or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Oh, I think this is just a way to center him as like, this is who you are. You're not that guy. You're you.
Right. I do like that he, at this point, like, he's like, oh, you're going to take my good luck charm from me too? It's on. And then he still starts losing. And I thought that was really funny.
That was pretty funny, where he was like, this ends now. Nope. No, it doesn't.
Nope. I guess I'm screwed. Yeah.
That's my internal monologue when I'm doing something and I'm like, all right, but this is it. I'm going to get this. All right, this is all right. Well, maybe not.
One more time. Let's try it again.
This is not going the way I thought it would.
So the game goes on. He's continually losing, but then it starts raining, so play is suspended.
Yes. And he's down like a lot.
This is where Paige is right. I don't know what break points are and shit like that. It gets really technical. It goes from like a tennis as the theme to like real in-depth tennis and this stuff.
So he's like 2.5 games down at this point. There are a couple sets into the third game.
So there are a couple of games into the third set.
Okay, sure.
So it's game, set, and match. And you
Okay.
have to get, I think, to 6 games to win the set, and you have to win by 2. And then in men's tennis, you have to win 3 sets. So you could potentially end up playing 5 sets if you're both really, really good, right?
Well, and that's basically what happens where
Yes.
he's about to lose because this is about to be the third. They're halfway through the third set
Yes.
is where we come in.
Yeah.
And he's lost all of them so far.
He's lost all of them so far, and he walks into the locker room, and the locker room guy that again told everyone that it was their year earlier in the movie.
He like tries to talk to him. Yeah.
He says, I'm not really in the mood for a pep talk, and he says, well, get ready for one because Lizzie is in the locker room.
Even before she spoke, I started crying.
Here's the thing. I did okay until she says, don't apologize to me. I love you. Apologize to them. And I was just like,
Yeah.
She's right. He's a spineless dick. Oh my God. But she's basically giving him a pep talk, and she tells him that she explains the serve and basically how he can break that serve.
Yeah.
And in part because I think she's practiced with Jake.
Yeah.
So I think she knows.
I mean, they at least hooked up at one of these tournaments. We know that. So they
Right.
probably hung out together for like 2 or 3 weeks at one of these tournaments. So she would know
Right.
that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What I would like about this scene is if she would have said, I'm going to love you no matter if you win or lose, but I really want you to win. And
Yes.
this is how.
Yeah.
But instead, she's like, you need to win.
Yeah.
She's like she kind of double down on it.
She does. But this is also, we cut into the audience where his agent is on the phone with somebody because he represents both of them. And he's like, which one do I want to win? That's like asking which one of my kids I love more. It's my daughter. Okay, we're going back to play. So Hammond is serving and he manages to return the serve. And the little ball boy comes back and he's
Yeah.
okay. And he's going to finish out the set or whatever. So we cut to the TV room, basically the broadcast room, and they're honing in on Lizzie in the audience.
Yeah, because this is when she comes into the stands.
Yeah, to basically imply that she's his good luck charm. This is also where we cut to Sam Neill is listening on the flight. So he flew back, or he was just like,
Right. He just
go get him, honey. I'm going to enjoy business class.
And also, how the fuck is he listening to the radio on a flight?
I have no idea, because this is 2004. I have no clue. I know.
Maybe the plane hadn't taken off yet.
I don't. I mean, like, I know that's how this would work today, but
Yeah.
like he's there with like champagne and like great show. Now the next 10 minutes of the movie are the most agonizing minutes of this movie.
Oh, I loved it because I can recognize the drama that's happening because I understand sports. So let me just like really quickly, I'll explain it and explain to you what's going on. So like he breaks Hammond's serve, right? So now he has control of the match. When it's his turn to serve again, he ties it up at 6s in the third set, right? So it's literally he brings it back from championship point for Hammond to where now he is pulling it into a tiebreaker to win that set. So it's going like a point counts like a game, right? And you have to win by 2. And he eventually does go back from championship point for Hammond to even to advantage him, and then he wins because you have to win by 2 points.
Yeah, because they end up at I think 5 sets.
They do, yeah. But this is him winning the third set right here, right? During that drama, you hear the Nokia phone go off.
Yes.
And then it's his agent because you see Ron bend down with his hand in his blazer pocket.
Yes.
And he puts the phone to his ear. You can totally tell it's him. I thought that was hilarious. But anyway, so he does come back to win that set. So now it's 2-1. And, you know, he starts to win, more or less.
Right. So he starts to win, but then we eventually get to where it's like match point.
We sort of gloss ahead, right? Because when he comes back from that championship point to wins that set, he's still down 1 set. So it yada, yada, yada's over Pete or Paul Bettany winning another set. So now they're in a 5th set, and he like when the announcer comes back and sort of sets the stakes of where we are now in the match, he says that, it's tied sets and Paul Bettany has broken Hammond's serve, right?
Paige, now that I've heard Todd talk about this, I agree this is terrible.
Right? Thank you. Thank you.
I can't help it if you don't know tennis. Anyway, so Paul Bettany gets up and walks to his side because they switch sides every match or whatever. And when he walks back over, that's when Hammond goes, I'll break you right back, you asshole, as he's walking past him. And he's just talking about how he's going to beat him on his own serve. Right. But he doesn't.
He doesn't. And this is where I started to get really frustrated because I was already like, meh. And I do want to say, not understanding sports doesn't always impact my enjoyment of things. I watched 6 seasons of The League and I don't understand football.
I love The League. Same.
But this movie, no. I was like, I'm lost. I'm so lost. So it's their last point, but he chokes. And then now it's the last point and he wins, but it's a bad call. And then they almost throw him out for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Right. And then it's like the last serve. It's like he has to win this point, right? And then he hits it and it hits the net, which is a fault. And you can get 2 faults before you lose that point. So it literally goes down to the last possible time he's allowed to hit this ball. And it's infuriating because it's what should be the last point takes 4 minutes in the movie.
At this point, I'm just I'm waiting for him to win, which is a less good ending. So he wins. He runs up into the stands. He hugs his family. We find out that James McAvoy bet on him this time.
Aw.
He was definitely lying, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Okay, yes.
He finds Lizzie, and she basically says, I'm not going anywhere. And then there's this weird thing where it's a globe hitting a racket, which is so dumb. And I'm like, why is this here?
We've got to finish that line because she says, I'm not going anywhere. And he says, yes, you are. You're going a long, long way, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because he's I still think he retires here. I think this is his last match.
Oh, he did.
Then he supports her, right? But Paige, that's when we see the racket and it go from London to New York.
Tennisportation.
Yeah, which is super dumb. So we find out that he does take a job at a club, but it's not the club that he was at. It's more of a family club where he can teach his children to play tennis. And this is where it reveals that they're still together with kids. And he basically is in the epilogue being my life wasn't over for not playing tennis. My life was still great. And then she goes on to win the U.S. Open and Wimbledon twice.
Yeah. And that's the movie.
Roll credits.
I legit was wiping tears away from my eyes for 4 minutes during the credits. It was so good.
The epilogue monologue, definitely, that's where I tear up right there.
Well, because now he's happy and has kids, Mikey. And I know, just because I know you, that's what you want. I think that's super sweet.
Okay, thank you. But okay, let me talk about alternative ending. Why I think it would be better because I think Paige is right. We take a detour into tennis land. I think it cheapens the movie, and I also think the themes are set up to be winning and luck are the most important, and competitiveness is the most important, which is the draw of their old lifestyle. So, and then she gets mad at him because of it. They have the whole talk in the locker room where she should have been love is actually more important. And no matter what happens in this match, I'm going to love you. And then if he lost the match and Jake Hammond goes out celebrating and everybody's cheering him on, but the camera zooms in on them celebrating each other. Okay, well, at least we're going to be together. I think that would have been a better ending.
I also see a very valid movie where he doesn't win and they don't end up together, but his life is still better for it.
God, you are such a cynic. I can see it, Paige, but man, every movie you want them to not end up together at the end.
Not entirely. I mean, I think the movie set it up to be that way, and when it's not really in sync with the rest of what we've seen in the movie. Because realistically, the odds are, if this was real life, they don't end up together, and he probably doesn't win, and he probably retires and has a very nice life, but he's had an experience that makes him think that I could be okay without tennis. But the rest of this movie sets it up to be no, you have to win, and this is the most significant Wimbledon of your life. So in a way, this movie sets it up his life is nothing without tennis.
Yeah.
In the past, his life does not exist in the way that he enjoys it in the future without tennis.
I mean, I see it. It's just no one wants to see that ending when they pay to go see a movie that makes you feel good.
Here's what's terrible, and we're not doing it this next week, but like I'm gonna at one point when it comes back around to my turn after this next turn, I'm gonna recommend a movie that has an ending that is not happy but is the right ending.
Okay.
And you're gonna have to deal with it.
I guess it's because I don't get a lot of good endings in life that I like the movies to have good endings.
I guess I appreciate when a movie is confident enough to have an ending that might not be traditionally happy but is honest. And so I feel like there is value to being honest about an ending and having characters be okay and grow from it.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. That's just not what I'm here for. And I think that's what a lot of people like these movies for, is that they get the happy ending.
Yeah. And for me, I don't care if he wins or not. So like the fact that he won, I was like, cool, that's great. That had no emotional weight for me at all.
But the epilogue, I was just like tears.
Yeah, same.
Here's the one thing I do like about the epilogue. I love a relationship where a man can appreciate and support a talented woman.
Yeah.
Even if she is more talented than him at a thing. I love that. I love setting that precedent. I almost would still be okay if he lost and they were still together. Because I do like your description of like everyone goes off with the winner and they're hugging because they won in the case of life, not necessarily in the case of this game. I'm kind of okay with that ending. It's not my ideal ending, but I'm cool with it. I just wish I didn't have to sit through
the tennis match. I know it ruins
that. I love the tennis. You guys are
everything.
crazy. And honestly, they did a great job in these tennis moments. Like they look like they're playing very, very well.
Paige, I'm 100% with you. I don't like Todd talking about tennis.
You guys are dicks.
He goes on for like 5 minutes, like, oh, break point and the match point and the
Do you want to hear how they score shot put in discus? No, I didn't think so.
Well, if you write me a shot put in discus a romantic comedy, we can have that discussion page.
We'll call it Balls of Steel, but I think there's
that
already
already exists. Yeah,
I think that's already a movie. So I don't have a ton of money facts for this because it all checks out. Like I was trying to find stuff, but I was like, okay, so they make millions as tennis pros. The prize for this is a lot of money. They get endorsements. They can afford literally everything in this movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing at all to find
his
fault
version
with.
of being short on money is that his beachside, amazingly awesome, huge condo is not completely renovated.
Right. Yes.
But just to put it in perspective, the winner of Wimbledon wins almost $3 million. It's like $2.9 million. And one thing that Wimbledon does is they pay both the men and the women the same. So he would have made almost $3 million, but she would have made close to $800,000 because she went out in the semifinal round. So she would have made a good amount of money too. So, and they're both rich as shit. Like they both seem like they have family money. They're rich, you know.
They're also, he's a journeyman player, she's a pro, which means that this isn't the only match they're making money on. And that cocktail party they go to is for Nike, and she's like kind of the guest of honor.
Yeah, that makes sense
to a degree. So they've got ass loads of money.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's crazy.
Even if you go out in the first round at Wimbledon, you make like $56,000.
And that's not even the reason to play. Like that is party favors, because the real win is the endorsements that come from
you got that Zesty Chip brand going.
Zesty Chip
Hell
brand,
yeah.
yo.
Well, I want you both to realize that these are the kind of movies that I love, romantic comedies, and I will probably make you watch more of them.
If you make me watch Match Point, so help me God. do we want to talk about box office?
What do you guys think the budget for this movie was?
Oh, God.
I think this is an expensive movie.
It looks really good. I'm not going to tell you, though. You got to guess.
Just because there's a lot of extras, there's a lot of locations, there's fancy stuff, there's sports stuff. There's probably a lot of stunt doubles, too. I'm going to call this one 40 mil.
I think this was made in the UK, so I'm going to say 21 million.
Okay. All right. Paige is closer. It's $35 million.
Very on point, Paige. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
She's much smarter than you are, man.
I can see that.
This movie came out September 17th, 2004. And when it came out its opening weekend, it was number 4 at the box office. It was beaten by Sky Captain and The World of Tomorrow. Do you guys remember that movie?
Terrible movie.
It was like the first green screen complete movie, and it was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was also beat by the number 2 movie that week that was Mr. 3000.
Oh, God.
The third movie that week was Resident Evil Apocalypse, which we are going to end up doing on Horror Virgin. And then number 4 was, of course, Wimbledon. And then Cellular was the 5th movie that week.
See, Cellular has endured as a cult classic.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, it's like early Chris Evans.
But Wimbledon in its opening weekend only made $7.1 million.
That doesn't surprise me.
Which is not great on a $35 million budget. It did go on to domestically make $16.8 million. And then internationally, and it doesn't surprise me that this made more money internationally because it is a UK-based movie, but it made $24.8 million. So it did make more than its budget at $41 million.
But only just barely.
The production budget does not account for the marketing of the movie, and a lot of movies spend a lot of money on marketing, so they may have lost money on this before you hit like DVD and Blu-ray sales. I'm sure it's made money since 2004, but it didn't do great.
Yeah, it didn't do great, but it was like a critical darling where critics loved it at the time, and it was one of those things where it was like pulling teeth to get people to go see it.
Oh, such a crime.
Yeah, I understand that. I loved the movie. I thought it was great.
I would say as romantic comedies go, this is one of the better ones we have done.
Yes, a concession.
That's not a very high bar to clear, though, man.
I mean, I would say cut the tennis out of this movie and it's great. not and by that I don't mean all the tennis. I mean cut that last half hour of tennis to 5 minutes and we cool.
Yeah, but that's box office.
It says that they're still together. But you agree with that? You think they're still together?
I think they're still together.
I do too. It sets it up in that epilogue that he is a very, very supportive husband after he retires. So I do think that they're still together. Yeah.
Do you think those children are tennis prodigies?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I definitely think they are. And they're going to have that thing where their mom is super attractive and their dad's super ugly. So they're somewhere in the middle, which is probably a sweet spot.
Their dad is only ugly in certain lights and when he is sweaty.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. No, I mean, when he walks in just those sweatpants, I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
So this week, Mikey made us watch Wimbledon. Paige, what are you making us watch next week?
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Me too.
Next week, we're watching Ever After.
Oh, damn. Okay, cool.
I have not seen that movie in like 15 years.
But you have seen it.
I saw it in theaters in high school.
It holds up.
Does it? Wait, just to make sure I remember this. This is Drew Barrymore, right?
Yeah, Drew
Yes, it
Barrymore,
is.
right?
Yeah. Okay. It's basically Cinderella, though, right?
It is Cinderella.
Yeah, okay. I remember this movie. Yeah. I remember really liking it in high school.
I remember nothing about this.
My dad texted me like last week because my mom, and my sister were watching it together. And they were like, this just makes us miss you and wish you were here.
I love your family so much.
Because this is so fun.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Will they adopt me?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so Ever After next week. And it's been hotly requested in the Facebook group. So I feel like this is going to be a fun one.
Nice. Well, just like we say every week, your homework this week is to get wine drunk and watch Ever After.
Do we want to read a review?
Oh, yeah. Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
I didn't even know we were going to do that, but yeah.
I'm
sure.
just saying we should start.
Yeah, if you want to have Mikey read your review, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and leave actual text so Mikey can have something fun to read.
We're up to 81 ratings.
I know. That's amazing. We've been out less
great.
than a month. I'm super happy about this.
Carrie45205 says, you had me at hello.
Aw.
I love you guys.
Oh, that's 3 loves. That's one for each of us.
Oh, you must really mean it.
You have me laughing out loud the whole time. Keep up the great work. Can't wait till the next episode drops. 5 stars.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie, for that awesome 5-star review. And if you guys want your 5-star review right on the podcast, leave us a review. And listen, if you guys like the sound of Paige's voice, she's on like 9 different podcasts. The Cult Podcast, which you guys should check out. Black Card Rehab as well. And then, of course, the podcast that we all do together called The Horror Virgin, where we do pretty much the same thing, but for horror movies.
But for horror movies,
And Paige, where can they reach out to you online if they want to send you funny, dank memes or whatever?
If you want to send me the dankest of memes, you could send those to @RampageWesley on Instagram or @PaigeWesley on Twitter.
And Mikey, where can they find you online?
mrandolph24 on all the socials.
And I am at Todd J. Awesome. The show account is at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yeah, at Romancing the Pod Show everywhere but Twitter, because Twitter has a character limit. And so it's at Romancing Pod Show, SHO, on Twitter.
Do we even really use Twitter? Like, we never do anything with that.
We don't, because really people should be emailing us at our email, sexymonocles@gmail.com. Just kidding. It's romancingthepodshow@gmail.com.
Yeah, don't give away my dating profile name, Sexy Monocle Mikey.
Sexy Monocle Mikey.
It's Magical Monocle Mikey. You gotta play the alliteration, Mikey.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Never, ever was there ever a man so clever as Magical Monocle Mikey. That's a joke for a handful of people.
Well, I loved it. That was amazing.
Oh,
All right.
God.
Thanks for listening to Romancing the Pod. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm
you complete
Todd.
Me. Oh, fuck you, Todd.
Oh, I didn't realize you were going to say something.
This is my new catchphrase.
Well, do it again.
And I'm Mikey. God dang it. What would I say? What did I say, Paige?
And you complete me.
Line.
And you complete me.
I'm Mikey, and you did it.
Oh, my God.
And I'm Mikey. And I'm Mikey. You complete.
I can smell the pork ribs, Mikey.
And I'm Mikey, and you complete me.
And I'm Todd, and you complete me.
Oh, no.
To
Completion. Hell yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great week.
La